people,
Mm.
and most of the people don't want to be there anyway.
Yeah, well, that was actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. So I see in a lot of other domains where robotics is creeping in more and more, it's not to replace humans all the time, but it's simply because there's a lack of desire for people to actually work in that domain. You know, whether it's construction, certain manufacturing industries, and waste is, I would assume, recycling and waste is one of the kind of prime industries where humans might not actually want to do that job. You said that there is a human shortage. Do you have any kind of stats on that, or do you see in the clients that you're working with, like they're really shorthanded with the amount of people that they
Uh,
need?
it's the main reason why people are calling us. That's the
Mm,
first
mm,
reason they're calling us. I mean, there's some clients of us, they talk to us as like they need, for example, 12 people to operate a sorting table, a sorting line, and by lunchtime they got six.
yeah,
So that means that their production is supposed to run, I don't know, at 30 tons an hour, and all of a sudden they have half the people on the line. So what do? Is they slow down to 15 tons an hour, or they let half the material go by. So it's pretty simple mechanics,
right, right.
and so they are constantly. That's what's hammering them. The shortage of labor, and they cannot afford to pay so much, so they are all in the lower wage bracket. And between you and me, I mean, if you have the choice of flipping burgers or picking trash, I mean,
Yeah,
you'd go with a more convenient, hygienic. It's a dangerous job to do this. With COVID, it exacerbated the whole thing because you put people in other people's trash.
right,
Literally,
right.
you. So they had to, yeah, they have to distance people to make sure that they don't infect each other. But look at it practically. You're asking them to sort through trash. So you have all these volatiles and all this dust and all this stuff. So it's becoming nearly impossible now. That even in Europe right now, in France, we have a client. It's by legislation that people cannot touch trash. They cannot sort.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
So now they have to automate, and and that's only the beginning. These are regulations that are more driven out of Europe, but out of more, I'd say, legal. There's some legal actions also happening in Canada and the U.S. where
Hmm.
people say, well, the respiratory issues having humans doing this job. So um, now it becomes more complex to have humans in these environment. COVID just
Yeah.
blew this up through the roof. First it was dust, and now it's like all this potential pathogens that could fly through. So you put all this together, you have people don't want to be there. They'd rather be anywhere else but on the sorting table. I mean, they'd rather drive the loader, or
Hmm.
there's a lot of room for people to work in a sorting center where there's fully automated cleaning, maintenance,
Hmm. Hmm.
name it, manipulation of material. That's still pretty much human based, but nobody wants to be on that sorting table. So the primary driver right now is labor. The secondary drive is, as I explained prior, is quality of sorting, because the
Hmm.
humans right now, they were okay for doing what we were doing when we were shipping our stuff to China, but that's no longer works.
So that's, yeah, yeah. So it's a real new paradigm today as compared to just a couple of years ago.
It's
Yeah.
I'd say 3 years ago it was another world than what
Yeah.
it is today.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing also, it's that automation has also kind of it's kind of I don't know if it's a crossroad where you have AI that comes in, because doing this sorting through trash is very complex.
Hmm.
Um, so AI progressed in maturity. Basically, started in 2015 for real. This sort of democratization of AI, and at the same time, you have China closing down. So you put AI emerging as a technology, and you put all this stress created by radical change coming from the closing of China's acceptance on our waste, and then you have a perfect storm for developing automation and waste.
Hmm. Yeah, a perfect point of how should I say? Yeah, crossroads, as you were saying, a point of connection between all these kind of different trends.
It's kind of a convergence, if I should
Yeah,
say, because and there's been a lot of talk also on circularity. We should treat our own waste.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
that's why is waste traveling? For example, Massachusetts is pretty much out of landfill space or incinerator capacity. They are putting stuff on railroad and they're sending it to Ohio,
Hmm.
and it's huge volume. And um, this whole idea that we should treat our own waste. Same in Ontario. They're shipping their waste to Michigan because the landfilling
Hmm.
there is cheap. Um, so this idea that we should treat our own waste is hence the circularity of it, like keeping it close and being able to reuse it. That's really something that it's kind of a new. It's always been there as a because the economics of it makes all these wishful thinking sort of go away pretty quickly, especially when politics is involved.
Hmm.
It makes it more difficult to accept paying higher price for for values or environmental values.
Hmm.
But now regulations, market forces, conversions of technologies, all of this is happening now, and now you can actually see that we can make, for example, recycled resin competitive with almost as competitive as virgin resin, and
Right.
also GHG laws, because if you put a carbon tax like they would do like in British Columbia, you put a carbon tax on products that are GHG heavy, then the price of petroleum resin goes a little higher and the price of recycled resin is more palatable.
Right.
Then it's a more level playing field from there on.
Hmm.